Hello everyone, welcome to episode 7, week 8 of Whitby Guernsey Knit. Last week I was still knitting on 4 needles, knitting the main body of the jersey and getting to the gussets, which I did do, and I'd just begun my increase. I had to increase every alternate round until I got 23 stitches on each gusset, and then I had to move on to putting the stitches on the 4 needles onto 2 needles and putting the gusset stitches onto holding needles. So this is where I've got to so far. So I've knitted the complete body of the Guernsey. I've completed the gussets on both sides, which I will show you if I can do without losing any stitches. That's gusset 1 with 23 stitches on, and here we have gusset 2 with 23 stitches on. So they've been now put on my stitch holders. In total I had 336 stitches for this size 42 Guernsey, and those 336 stitches had to be put onto 2 needles. So on each of these needles now I have 168 stitches. I've put these really thick elastic bands on each end to try and stop the needles slipping off, because it's now quite difficult to keep them all on. You can see that they're all gathered. So it is finally time to commence my pattern. I had to knit on the side I'm going to do, which is this side. I had to knit a row because it left me facing with a purl row, and I want to start on the front side for row 1 of my pattern. So I will show you now the pattern. First of all, I'll just show you this frangipani pattern. They have put a really nice rib that's on the top of the welt down the side, and I do like that. So I contemplated doing that, and that was on, I'll just hold my graph paper up now at stitch 1. So I contemplated doing that and then putting in a pattern. I wanted to put a Whitby pattern, incorporate a Whitby pattern in it, and I just thought it's going to be too fussy. So I've decided not to do that, but I think I'm going to do that rib at the top of the sleeve to make it the same as the bottom of the welt, or I could do it actually after the welt on the cuffs, but that's further in the future. So what I've done is I've got my squared paper, and I know I only needed to go halfway across my stitches, but I did not want to make a mistake. So you'll see my squared paper goes on and on and on until I get to my 168 stitches. I do not want to make a mistake on this very, very important part. So I then got the book Patterns for Guernseys, Jerseys and Arans by Gladys Thompson, and I looked at the Whitby patterns. Now the Whitby patterns, there's pattern 1, and that's just basically knit 2, purl 2, 5 times and repeat as required, and then on the 3rd and 4th row knit. And I thought that's quite plain. I think that's this one, the really famous one that you see Harry Freeman wearing. So there's that one. Then the next one, which pattern 2, is a multiple of 18 stitches, and that's basically kind of a false a false rope really in a way. It's just basically purl and knit and purl and knit, and that's a multiple of 18 stitches. Then the third one was a multiple of 30 stitches. That's that one there, and I think, no, it's not that pattern there. So that's again basically it is a mixture of knit and purl to provide a pattern. Then the fourth one has a cable in, so it's knit and purl and knit, and that's a multiple of 20 stitches. That is this one here. The fourth one is that pattern there, which is quite nice. That's a multiple of 25 stitches. The next one is, I think that's a cable as well. Yeah, cable stitches and like a little checkerboard pattern, which is quite nice. A multiple of, oh, it doesn't actually say the multiple of that one. The next one, which I really like, and it's another famous one, it does have a name, I think, that one, but that was a multiple. That doesn't say the multiple actually. It's 8 rows basically, that one. And then the 8 one is pattern 8, Whitby pattern 8, is a diamond with a cable either side, and that's a multiple of 21 stitches. So I had lots of choice. I didn't know whether to actually put, you can't see on that Henry Freeman one, but a lot of the Guernseys have down here kind of a knit and purl to before you start the actual patterning, but I'm not going to do that. I'm thinking I'm getting too busy if I start doing that and put things on sleeves. So I'm just going to go straight into the pattern. So when I looked at doing the patterns and the repeat, it was the repeat that was really important. I did think about incorporating a mixture of the patterns, and I thought that's really too ambitious for me when I'm doing my first one. So I looked at the amount of stitches, and with them being a multiple of 20, if it was one of the patterns that had a multiple of 20, it left me with 8 stitches, which would be 4 stitches on either end of my front. So each side of my front and each side of my back. The third multiple of 30 left me with 18 stitches left over, which would be 9 at either side of the front and back. And then there was a 25 stitch repeat, which left me again with 9. The pattern 6, the Whitby pattern 6, left me with 8, which would be 4 at either side. The pattern 7 left me with 9 stitches. And then the pattern 8 was a multiple of 21. And that worked out exactly right with 168 stitches, which was perfect. So what I then did, when I wrote all my numbers to 168, which would be the front, and then 168 again to the back. So when I did the front one, I don't know if you can see, it begins with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It began with 5 knit, 2 purl, 2, 4, 6 knit, 2 purl, and then 11. And when I got to the middle, which is here, when I got to that middle, it stopped at the end of a repeat, and that didn't look right, because here you can see that there's my middle. I would have 2 purls, and then I would have these 11 knit, which would be the diamond. Well, I obviously need the diamond in the middle because there's 2 pearls at either side, and then there's the cables at either side of that. So I needed the diamond to be in the middle. So what I did then was I moved everything along. So I have my diamond, it's really tricky to see, but I have my diamond in the middle and my 2 pearls either side, and then either side of that I've got my cables. So when I shifted everything along, and I did it all the way from number 1 to the 168, what it's left me with is 3 knits at either side. So I am going to just leave that there. Well, I'm going to look at it, have a go at knitting some of the pattern, and I'll get a little bit of the way up and see if it looks okay. I hope it does, because otherwise pulling that out will be an absolute nightmare due to the thinness of the wool and seeing the stitches, and they run down really quickly. So that's where I've got to now. I've got to now trial the pattern. So I'm going to pause this video now, knit a few rows, and then get back to you to show you how it's worked out. Well, I have finally succeeded in actually putting my pattern onto my Guernsey, but it wasn't as easy as I thought it was going to be with the Whitby pattern 8, which I'll just show you. It was this one that I decided to do in the end, because with it being a multiple of 21 stitches, it worked out, or supposedly worked out correctly. But then I had to shift everything because my diamond was not in the middle of the front, and it wouldn't have been in the middle of the back. So I think I showed you me doing that. Well, as you can see, my squared paper is absolutely full, because what seemed to be really, really easy became really, really tricky. And the reason why it became tricky was I had to have that diamond right in the middle. But when I got to each side, there was one less stitch at one side than the other due to the fact of the amount of stitches on the actual jumper. So that wasn't a problem. I just increased one. I thought a stitch, no one would know. But when I worked out the pattern for the diamond in the middle and worked to each side, at the side I was going to be left with just a few knit stitches doing nothing at all. So I know I said I didn't want to put in the 2x2 here at the edge, but what I ended up doing was, I'm going to try and wait to see, I ended up doing a purl, a knit, and then a purl, I think. Let me have a look, I can't see. Knit, purl, knit, and then into my purl. And I think it's going to look all right. So this is my pattern. It is, I'll lay it down later and take a photo of it so you can see it. So it's just basically ropes and the diamond and the rope and the diamond repeated all the way along. So in the end, it was fairly simple to do the pattern, but then as I was doing the rows and following the booklet, I'll just show you here, it says first row, purl 2, knit 6, purl 2, knit 11, repeat. So that was fine. second row, purl 2, cross cable, purl 2, knit 5, purl 1, knit 5. And I thought, well, I'm crossing the cable on the wrong side. I thought, why am I doing that? Anyway, I did it, and then when I started going down to row 3, which was purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, that was okay. And then when I got to the 4th row, it just wasn't making the diamonds. It just wasn't right. And I kept thinking, what is it? What is wrong? There's something wrong with it. And it took ages for the penny to drop. And this booklet, obviously, these are knitted in the round. So it was correct, but it isn't correct for my Guernsey, because with me following the frangipani actual jersey, I had to go on to 2 needles. So I'm doing knit, purl, knit, purl. So what I ended up doing, the only way to make sure I was right, I did all that pattern. These are where I've had to increase bits and make sure when I'm coming back on the next row it was correct. I didn't want to make any more mistakes, and because it was so difficult taking the stitches out and putting them back in. So I did my knit row, my purl row, and just transferred the pattern. And I couldn't do, it said in the booklet to cross the cable every 7th row. Well, that worked out on a purl row, so I've done it. So I'm crossing the cable every 8th row, and it has worked out well. So I'm on the up again after having an absolute disaster earlier this afternoon when I picked my knitting up. I just had a look at it as I was going along, and I've never done this before. 2 of my cables, I've been crossing my cables at the front, putting 3 at the front, knitting 3, and then knitting the 3 off my cable needle at the front. I'd actually done 2 at the back, and I'd done just a little bit more than this. So I ended up, I couldn't take it back down with the cross, it just was making an absolute mess. So I've ended up pulling the whole lot out again and picking it all up. So that's the stage I am at for the end of this week. Every time I look at it now, I could have been 2 more ropes up for my silly mistakes. But anyway, I'm on the up now. So let's see where I get to for next week. I haven't even looked at the next step. I'm not looking at the next step until I have knitted, I think it's 11 inches I have to do of this pattern, and then I will look. So all in all, a mixed bag really. I was looking forward to getting onto the 2 needles, which wasn't as nice as I expected because I had all the oh no, I didn't have the gussets on. I took the gussets off, and then when I started the pattern, it's much better than my 4 needles. I can work a lot quicker really, although I'm having to watch all the time. So let's see where I get to next week. Thank you everyone for watching.